Authors Press.
Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Richardson and I'm from Authors Press. Today is October 19th, 2022. Today we have another fantastic virtual interview with Daniel M. DeWald, the author of the book Gray Feathers, Led by Love of Country. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Daniel?
I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana originally, and went to Indiana University and received an MBA in management from Xavier University in Cincinnati, and served 2 years active service in the U.S. Army Infantry as a combat platoon leader, and then started my career with a number of different companies in supply chain management and distribution. And after about 30 years of that, I became a consultant in the field of material management.
That's wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about your book, Gray Feathers, Led by Love of Country?
Certainly love to do that. Gray Feathers is a story. The name of Gray Feathers is derived from an Indian term when Braves first entered the tribe. And all the Braves received a gray feathers, which meant that they were part of the tribe. And when they did something eventful, they received a colored feather, and you'll see a lot of pictures of the chiefs with different colored feathers in their hats. But that signified that everybody watched each other's back, and that's exactly what the Vietnam War was. When you're out in the field, everybody watches your back. It doesn't matter what rank you are. It doesn't matter because it was a type of war that everybody had to work together to make it happen. So stick together was part of the problem of being in the war. If you weren't sticking together, you weren't successful. So, that was the reason for Gray Feathers. The book's about all the heroics and all the actions that happened during the period of time that I was over there in Vietnam. And the period of time I was over there was 1969 to 1970, and the book comprises the years from 1967 to 1970.
Oh, wow. So your book doesn't take... I thought your book took span over a longer period of time.
No, just 4 years.
Could you tell us, I know that you brushed on this a little bit, but could you go deeper into what inspired the idea for your book?
Yes. The reason it inspired, the Gray Feathers inspired it, was that sticking together in combat was probably the best thing that I learned from being in combat. I was a leader, but I had to listen to others to make things happen. And they also had to follow my orders, which meant that I'd have good orders out there, otherwise they wouldn't follow it. So it's, the intensity of battle, finding the decision-making under fire, those things are very important that you learn when you're working together as a unit.
Okay, so you have to, not only do you have to work as a team, but you have to work fast as a team, which is not easy. I know that.
Yes, you do. You have to work very fast, and the teamwork is so essential when you come down to the service and combat issues.
Which makes a lot of sense. You've got a whole team that you've got to work with.
Yes, and even to the point of transportation and the point of eating together, as far as camaraderie together, you develop that teamwork that it's hard to imagine how close you become as a team, but yet you still have the separation of who's the leader and who are the followers.
Okay, I see. And you talked about this as well, but I want to go deeper into this as well. How did you develop your title, Gray Feathers, Led by Love of Country? Like, for example, what does it mean, and what is the significance to you?
Well, Gray Feathers means really sticking together. That everybody is the same when we're in a combat duty. And basically that meant that when you went to war, that you had a common goal, a common purpose in what you are doing in the operation. Whether it be a blocking force, whether it be searching for different things, or just working together as a team, creating things, or digging fortifications, or building a bridge. It was just very important that all thought the same way. And doesn't mean you don't have different ideas, and you did. You had a lot of different ideas, and all of them put together made the great ideas. So it was one that people really enjoyed working together with and were proud of their unit.
That's really cool. I can only imagine that after so much time of being with your whole unit like that, you would develop a synchronicity.
You do, yes, very much so.
Are there any parts of this story that you have a deeper and more significant connection to?
Yes, writing the book was very intense because it took a lot of notes and observations, and it sat there for quite a while before I decided to write anything about the book. And because it took a while, it still was fresh in my memory. Because of all the events and all the things that happened, I never got rid of that. And plus, even sleeping at night, every 2 hours I'd wake up. That was a standard part of being a platoon leader because you wanted to make sure people were on guard duty every 2 hours. So it was never a full sleep, and it's just part of you now. And the other thing is gathering the intensity of battle and writing about it. There was one battle in particular that I kept going through. It was called the Battle of the Stream Bed. It's an unnamed battle, of course, in history. But a company was pinned down by a company of NVA soldiers. The NVA soldiers were at the top of the mountain, and they had snipers located on different trees around the mountain. And the platoon was ambushed. And they kept firing uphill. And of course, when you fire uphill, you don't get near the accuracy, or you don't really get out of that area very easily. So my platoon was called in to help them withdraw from the conflict, and then direct air power and artillery on where the enemy was located. So I remember going in there, not knowing exactly what I was facing, but you had a company of 120 men down in the ravine, and you have about 300 NVA soldiers at the top. It was more than the company, by the way. And they were all overpowering this company, and they were running low on ammunition. So I had to go in and get everybody together to concentrate firing on the position so that they could withdraw from the conflict. In the meantime, I had to pull a sergeant that fell into a spider hole, which is a hole of about 12 inches wide, and this probably longer than that. But he got into that hole and couldn't get out. He was pinned down. Had to drag him out of there and bring him back to the rear. And those things just stick with you as you go through battle. And that was one of the things that brought out as I was starting to research and write the book. There's so many other things. There were examples that other people experienced in the war that created that intensity.
Okay, I see. And you said that writing this book was very intense for you. Could you tell us why you decided to write it?
One thing is because I wanted to show the heroic things that a soldier would do in the country of Vietnam during the war, and the intensity of battle, because everyone who participated in that went through a lot, and nobody really talked about it when they got out of the war. Nobody wrote about it. Everybody would keep it secret. They didn't want people to know how bad it was if you went without food for a while, and you did go without food for a while, or you lost ammunition, or you were in a battle and you were pinned down, couldn't move, or people were getting killed next to you, or badly injured. How do you take care of them during the battle while you're fighting? And once the fighting is over with, how do you feel? Those are the things that I wanted to stress out in the book itself. And basically tried to show that what the operations were about. How do you determine what a blocking force is? How do you if you're searching for the war, for the enemy, what do you have to face? We went through about a 60-day period where all we did was hike the mountains, and we call it the humping the mountains for the period of that time. And nothing happened except maybe once or twice. You get complacent when that happens, and you don't really think you're going to be into a combat situation. So you have to get people out of that mode so they're always ready for something to happen. So that's part of what happened during the war.
Okay, I see. And I can only imagine how being constantly on edge like that could affect the human brain.
Yes, it does. And people don't sleep. I mean, you're awake the whole time, and even on trails you can't rest. You cannot rest on the trails. You have to keep moving.
Yeah, and not getting enough sleep on its own can cause significant damage to the human brain. So on top of that, with all of the tribulations, to put it lightly, that you experience, I can't imagine.
The other thing that's so important to remember on this is that the war was conducted by a lot of draftees. A lot of the people in the soldiers, about half of my platoon were draftees. They didn't really want to be in there, and yet they did extremely well in combating the enemy. And I think that speaks well for the soldiers themselves. So they were forced to go, and they didn't really have a choice. They didn't really have that choice. And then the other thing was the intensity of the battles. I think everyone deserves the gray feathers, of course, and the heroism, and that includes the Air Force pilots that helped us with the bombing of the enemy forces. Snoopy would come in at night and would rate would fire where enemy locations were to reduce the workload on the soldier. So there are a lot of support that happened, and I think then the whole part of this was that Gray Feathers was a historical significant book that described the events and had people to try to have them understand what actually went on.
Now, I'm curious for myself, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
No, I was an officer, which meant that
I see.
I went through ROTC training. I was assigned to the infantry unit, where I went into infantry training and airborne training, and then they gave me a company to train basic training enlistees as my first assignment to get me used to giving orders. I was sent to Panama to jungle school, and I'm glad I did. It taught me a lot about the jungle and how to handle myself, and then forwarded on to the 4th Division in Vietnam. So the one thing that I really liked is the training really taught you how to cope with the war. And I didn't hear it mention the tunnels that I got into and things like that. There's a lot of aspects about the Vietnam War that people really don't talk about.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's why there are so many people who are very, very minimally educated on it.
I think so. I hope the book does some of that. You know, I'm sure it isn't the perfect book out there, but I hope that people read it and understand it, and certainly ask me questions. I can give them answers. I'm not afraid to do that. So, and I'd like that. I really would like the readers to do that with me.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you said that this book is based off of real life events. Did you include any sort of fiction in your book?
No.
No? Okay, so this is purely nonfiction.
It's nonfiction.
Okay, I see. How do you want this book to impact your readers?
So that they understand what the war was about. Like, as a platoon leader, you can hear the bullets whizzing by you. You can hear the B-40 rockets going by you, and getting that feel of the intensity of the battle, what the soldiers went through as they were engaging in the different operations. And also want to have a variety of operations for people to understand what all went on, what kind of things would occur, and I have schematics on all the different operations in the book to kind of give them a feel for where the enemy was located and where the soldiers were located. So when you come out of that, you understand what really went on, and that was really the purpose of the book, so that they could show how well the soldiers performed, and to remember them instead of having throw eggs at people on the Vietnam vets, to congratulate them for getting a job well done.
So you really created a very immersive experience for your reader.
Yes, very much so. And the other thing, we talked about other things too. I mean, there were some highlights and lighter items like what type of religions do they have over there now, and of course the Muslims are coming in, so who knows what's going to happen in the Southeast Asia areas. But and then the other thing, we had a king cobra come into one of the, and a king cobra is about 15 feet long and weighs over 100 pounds, came into one of the shelters that they were fighting out of. How do you get that out of there? And it caused havoc. So you have some lighter moments too in the combat areas. And one of the things that was kind of interesting was on Christmas Eve we had a stable that we went to, where the chaplain came out and gave us a service, and a star was out that was somehow brighter than most. He would read by the stars, and it was just fun. It's kind of a nostalgic place where you can say, here's a stable and here's the Christmas Eve. And of course, then you have people like the Red Cross that comes in with their donut dollies to give coffee and donuts. That only happened once in my time there. But that gave a break for the guys when they were out in the field.
A much needed break, I can only imagine.
Yes. Coffee was good too.
Coffee's always good.
Yes.
This is not one of my interview questions, but I do think that it would significantly add to this interview. How do you expect your readers to be impacted by your story and your book?
Good question. I am hopeful that veterans who have been in the Vietnam War and the families of veterans and families of veterans who've lost their veterans in the Vietnam War, and all veterans have an understanding of what it really takes to go through the operations, what it really meant to go through the operation, and what the soldier encountered during the time he was over there. Because I think the press lightly mentioned it, the Congress really didn't understand it, the soldier did. And when the soldiers came home, there was no understanding. The world went on. Nobody really knew what was going on in the soldiers. So it doesn't matter how you feel, you've got to get back into the swing of things. Like I can remember how loud noises, I'd be jumping under tables or wherever I could find it, get overhead cover. It was a comical thing. And there are a lot of different things, like insatiable appetite for salt, because we had salt tablets every day. So when you came home, I put salt on everything. So it's the little things that really that happened to a soldier. And of course, when he came back, everybody said, "Hey, you're back. Go to work." And there wasn't anything gone. And a lot of the soldiers went on to school and got the GI Bill, which is a great thing for the soldier to get back to where he should be. So anyway, that was what I'm hoping people would take away from it.
Okay, I see. So you just want to educate people.
I would like that, yes.
What surprised you the most while you were writing this book?
I was surprised how much I remembered, because it was a long time when I compiled all my notes and all the pictures. I just put it down. I didn't worry about it after I got home.
Yeah, in the late 60s, that was before I was even born, so I can imagine how much of a struggle it would be to reminisce and remember any kind of memories.
Yes, and really, there was no reason to write about it. I mean, there was so much negativity toward the war at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you go on and you go to work, which I did. I went to school, and you incorporate yourself in society. And after a while, I found these notes in the closet. I said, well, why don't I do something with it? And my mother at the time said, why don't you write about it? And that encouraged me to write about the book, and that produced Great Feathers.
you definitely mentioned this earlier. You said it was very intense for you, but how did writing this book make you feel? What kind of emotions did it invoke?
Yeah, every type of emotion, as you have to go through every battle scene and write, or every operation, you have to put yourself in it. And when you put yourself in it, you start feeling the intensity. You start feeling the battle scenes. You start feeling how soldiers feel. You start feeling when a soldier gets killed or injured. All those emotions come back to you as you read the book, and as I was writing the book. And you put yourself right in the place of the soldier at the time.
Okay, yeah, and which could really cause a lot of mixed emotions.
It does, very much so. And by having all the mixed emotions you have, that's why people put it aside. They couldn't talk about the war. They would not, and the reason they wouldn't talk about it is that because of all the dangers that they encountered and all the intense, all the work that they had to do in combat, and really, do you really want to know about all that we did? You know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I thought it was a good way of depicting what the soldier felt like and what the operations were.
Yeah, especially because you created such an immersive experience for your reader. It really helps convey what you're trying to convey, the emotions and the intensity of everything.
Yes, and have an understanding of what operations really are. Because I don't think, the papers never produced any of that. You know, what do you do when you go from point A to point B? Why do you do that? You know, what units do you have to come in to have you help with all the maneuvers and things you have to talk about? What really constitutes the war? And it doesn't talk about the politics. Put the politics aside. We're talking about a war. And because they don't have time for politics over there. They always have the saying, the politicians create the war, the military fights it. And that holds true in this war as well.
Yeah, that's actually one of the lyrics to one of my favorite songs. The Black Sabbath song.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's called War Pigs. I've just got a couple more questions for you. Are you pleased with the general outcome of this book, or would you change anything about Gray Feathers if you were given the chance?
I'm pleased with how it turned out because it basically is a sequential description of events. I like the way I think people enjoy reading it. At least it gives a historical reference to that period of time. And I guess changing things, I probably would do better editing than what I did. There are things in there I probably should have changed, but overall I thought it was very good.
Yeah, I know that this version of the book is the second edition, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like the newer cover compared to the older cover, by the way.
Oh, good. I'm glad you do. But the other thing was, the first book didn't have any schematics, didn't have anything on there. And I thought it missed that. And I just decided, well, it's time to get that out in front of everyone so if you can really understand, see a picture where it really is going on. And we have a number of pictures in that book as well.
Yeah, it really creates that immersive, right there experience that you were trying to create.
I tried to, yes. And for the most part, I was successful in doing that.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or anything you'd like to mention before we end the interview?
I think that for readers, that they would, no matter whether they were in the service or not, I think they would enjoy the book from a historical value. Because I think the book explains how things happened during that time of the war and what the soldier went through, and that they would earn their gray feathers if they would read the book, because it shows you're part of the camaraderie of the soldier during that period of time.
Okay, I see. And for my last question, I'd just like to know, how has this interaction with Authors Press been for you so far?
I haven't had much interaction yet. I have had a facilitator help me get into an advertising with my book, and so I don't know the results of that yet, but I like the way that the advertisement went. So that's the only. But so far it's been good.
Okay, yeah. I'm definitely excited to see the results of those advertisements as well.
I'm waiting in bated breath.
That's all the questions I have to ask you for today. Thanks so much for gathering with me to talk about your book. I learned more than I thought I would.
Well, good. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Authors Press either via phone number or email, and we're more than happy to help.
I think I've been really pleased so far.
Thanks so much. This has been Daniel M. DeWald and Nicole Richardson. Thank you so much for listening.